Realism is something that gets hated on a lot in the Roblox storm chasing community, but it's a fan favorite at the same time. Most people are generally pretty divided on this, but I think that there's a good in-between here. On one side, most people think that realism takes away from the fun of the game, drowning out real experiences with the boring parts of storm chasing. On the other hand, we have people completely in favor of any realism being added to games, no matter what it is, because it adds the immersion of the experience and simulates storm chasing for people that aren't able to in real life. Obviously, these ideas tend to clash a lot, and that leaves us with one solution: a compromise. However, that compromise is usually done poorly. So, that begs the question: where should realism be in storm chasing games? Typically, when it comes to realism, most games take the easy way out. They focus on things that are easy to match to real life, which usually ends up being things that don't directly affect gameplay, like lighting or sound effects. Most games will try really hard to get realistic visuals like RTS Chasing, Chased, or Storm Chasers Reborn 7, but this is nearly impossible to perfect. A lot of games also try to focus on making their wind fields accurate, or features that make the game a lot more difficult. Sure, these are all cool things to have in a game, but it is actually a bad thing. Here's why. The features that make a game fun are the ones that are interacted with the most. And when those features are either largely ignored or forced to be as realistic as possible, they tend to lack the fun they need to keep the game alive. Let's take Twisted 1.21.1 for example. The average tornado size in real life is only about 50 feet wide. Sure, Twisted did make their average tornadoes a little bit bigger than this, but the average tornado in Twisted for a long time was still only a few hundred feet wide. You'll know if you played 1.21.1 frequently that this is not wide enough to actually make a good profit off of or spend any time actually having fun inside of a tornado. This was later changed, but it was a rough time for the game because the focus of realism was in the wrong spot. Let's talk about Twisted 1.20 now. Most tornado tracks in real life are fairly straight, and Twisted 1.20 recreated that a little too well. Twisted 1.20's tornadoes were a little bit too predictable, and it got insanely boring because there were no factors that made the tornadoes generally unpredictable. Now let's look at Helicity for another example. Large tornadoes are generally weaker in the main funnel because the winds are more spread out. Helicity does a great job at recreating this, and you can intercept a large tornado that you expect to be strong and get absolutely nothing from it, except for on some rare higher-end occasions. Another issue that I find a lot more common than I would like to is when games focus a little too hard on making one aspect realistic and then cheap out on all the others. SCR7 is a great example of this, and it's a real shame to see. They focus way too hard on perfecting the storms and thermodynamics to the point where the rest of the game kinda sucks. The map in SCR7 is terrible, to say the least, and the vehicles are subpar. It directly points to the fact that balance is one of the most important parts in making a storm chasing game, which leads us to the next topic. The two ends of the spectrum here are the people that want storm chasing games that are fully arcade, or people who want storm chasing games that are fully based on realism. There are multiple reasons why neither of these will work. Let's start on why arcade doesn't work. When you try to give people all of the unrealistic fun features that they want, it won't feel special anymore. When you have unlimited crazy risk or crazy boosted tornadoes all the time, it starts to become normal. Things start to become less and less grounded, and at some point, everything just gets overwhelming and oversaturated, and everyone forgets about the game. Let's look at this in terms of money. If you work hard for your cash, putting lots of effort into getting it, it feels more rewarding to spend it on something you want. But when money becomes unlimited, then it starts to feel worthless, and you don't feel the same rewarding feeling when you get the thing you want anymore. Now, let's focus on why all-out realism won't work either. A video game is supposed to filter out all of the bad parts of storm chasing. Storm chasing is not all tornadoes and rainbows. Most of the time, storm chasing is hours of driving, very taxing on your health, and it's super expensive. Storm chasing games are meant to simulate the cool parts of storm chasing and exclude things like paying a ton of money for gas, food, and a place to sleep for every chase, making sure your vehicles are always in tip-top shape, putting in a bunch of effort just for nothing to happen on the chase. Sure, some of these things are alright to deal with, like Twisted's maintenance features, or the fact that not every single chase is a banger, but it shouldn't quite be any type of extreme either. As I said before, realism in storm chasing games should also focus on the parts of the game that players interact with the most, but it also needs to be kept in the fun parts of storm chasing and not the exhausting parts. The realism should be focused on making beautiful storms, exciting tornadoes, widely customizable vehicles, a wonderful environment, exhilarating light shows, terrific damage scenes, and the terrifying force of Mother Nature. Those things I just listed are the key to making a great storm chasing game. No less, but there's absolutely room for more immersion and the scare factor. Those things are what will keep people hooked onto a game, not tornadoes that are so difficult to intercept or boring that most players quit before they even progress anywhere in the game. Although beauty is, in fact, in the eye of the beholder. So, that being said, what do you think is an appropriate amount of realism for storm chasing games?